Good evening, I'm Timbo Pham for Studio 41. Sometimes interactions with law enforcement isn't always positive. If you're pulled over for speeding, chances are officers are going to give you a ticket. If your neighbor files a noise complaint, an officer may knock on your door with a fine. So what are your rights when fighting a ticket? And if you're having a conflict with your landlord, what are your rights as a tenant? Tonight, Studio 41 takes a look at law enforcement in the city of Pullman and what resources are available to you when you get into legal trouble. For our Man on the Street segment, Studio 41 sent Aaron Osgood to get consensus from the community and their opinion of Pullman Police Department. Let's see what she found.
Thanks, Timbo. I'm here for our Man on the Street tonight, and we just wanted to find out what citizens and students are saying about our local law enforcement. I think that the Pullman Police Department does a good job of protecting students and residents.
I would say so, yeah.
I mean, I feel safe living in Pullman with the police here. I mean, I haven't had anything go wrong to me, and I leave my door unlocked.
I think that they have a lot going on with drug task force right now, and I think that they're doing a great job with that. I also think that when the college students come back, it's a little bit more tricky. Our population goes up.
Street and stuff, but other than that, they're awesome. They're doing a good job.
Great, well, thank you. That's all we have for our Man on the Street. Back to you, Timbo.
Although seasons are changing in Pullman, the job of a police officer stays the same. Our reporter Hagen Sandoval found out what it's like to be behind the badge.
It's a Friday night here in Pullman, and I'm doing a ride-along here with Pullman Police Officer Harris. We're going to see what it's like through the other side of the windshield. Let's go check it out.
A 28-year-old male, he's conscious and breathing, complaining of knee pain. He can't stand up. Unknown health.
It's 1:25 in the morning right now. We just got done with a wild ride here with Officer Harris as we responded to a fight here in Stubble Field. All right, well, it's day 2 here of our police ride-along. I'm here with Officer Harris. Do you think tonight we might see a little bit more action than we saw yesterday, or is it kind of hard to judge?
It's kind of difficult to judge. It is a 3-day weekend, so a lot of students might have gone home for the weekend.
Responded to a welfare check near Valley Road playing fields. Well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're wrapping up a little bit early. Thank you again, Officer Harris. What would you say you would reflect on over the past 2 days that we've ridden with you?
Yesterday we had kind of an interesting day with a foot pursuit and some drunk people fighting, and then today was pretty much one big event with the firearm and the domestic violence.
So would you say it's kind of along the lines of both sides of the work, that it's not always chasing someone, on the streets as well as the paperwork as well?
Exactly, and some cases go very quickly and you're kind of quickly on to the next thing. Then when something relatively big happens, you could spend hours just documenting one event.
Perfect, thank you. And that's going to wrap it up here with our ride-along. Back to you in the studio, Timbo.
We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Pullman Police Chief Jenkins will talk with us about the recent burglaries in Pullman. Don't go away. Welcome back. Within the past 2 weeks, there have been multiple reports of burglaries in Pullman. Police are still investigating whether these cases are related, but more importantly, these incidences have brought concern to local residents. Here with me tonight is Police Chief Jenkins. Chief Jenkins was sworn in to the police department in 2010. Before he moved to Pullman, Chief Jenkins was captain at the Claremont Police Department in California for 26 years. Jenkins holds a bachelor's degree in management from the University of Redlands and a master's in educational leadership from San Diego State University. Thanks for joining us tonight, Chief Jenkins.
Glad to be here.
So can you give us an update on the recent burglaries in Pullman?
I really don't have much of an update to give other than we are still investigating the potential involvement of the suspects we arrested in other crimes that occurred that weekend and also in previous weekends.
Thank you. So can you explain to me what your role as police chief?
Well, there's a number of things I'm responsible for, but mainly, the buck stops with me. I'm ultimately responsible for law enforcement services to our community, to provide efficient and effective law enforcement services, and also the manner that we provide law enforcement services, that our staff is responsive and professional, and that they are accountable. And also another big role that I have is really to be a liaison or an ambassador for the department out in the community with the public at large, and also with various organizations in the community and community leaders.
Thank you. So kind of switching gears, what would you say is the most prevalent crime in Pullman?
I think the crime that we see occur most frequently is just generally theft. That's the crime that's reported the most. In some years, vandalism outpaces theft, but more often than not, theft is our top crime in the city.
So what are some of the things the police department is doing to combat some of those theft-related or vandalism problems?
Well, a lot of it really has to do with educating the public. Letting the public know, for example, we have a lot of thefts that occur because someone has left their car unlocked, or they've left some valuables out in plain sight in their vehicle. We have a number of other thefts that occur during parties when there's a number of people in a house that aren't necessarily known to the resident of that location, and so the next day they find that there are a number of items missing. And so it's a matter of having the public be aware of how these different crimes occur, and then take precautions to keep them from happening, like not having any valuables in plain sight in their car, making sure they lock their cars. Control who has access to your house or various rooms in your house.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my next question. So we know the latest string of burglaries surrounded an individual or multiple individuals knocking on doors, waiting for a response, and if they didn't hear anything, they either jiggled on the door, got their way in. What if someone would have been home? What should someone do in that situation?
Well, and in fact, that is what happened in the most recent case. We believe that they did knock on the door, and the resident just didn't hear them. And so the suspects ended up breaking into the house thinking no one was home, and then someone was confronted with a suspect face to face. And so first thing I would say is if there's a knock on the door and you have the ability to look out, which we recommend that you have some kind of a peephole or something like that where you can see. If you don't recognize the person, let them know that someone is home by saying, I can't come to the door right now. What do you want? What can I do for you? And then if it is someone that's looking to break into your house, then they'll go away. And then we definitely want that person to call the police. But if you're in a situation like the most recent case where you just find yourself confronted with someone, essentially we think it's best for someone to cooperate, to follow their instructions. Losing some property is not worth losing your life, obviously. And so, however, if you're then in a situation where it's apparent that you're going to be assaulted or in danger of some serious bodily injury, then we have kind of a simple term that we now use with like active shooter situations. It's called run, hide, fight. So your first option to think about would be, if you can get out of there safely, just run. If you can't do that, hide somewhere where they can't see you. But obviously, if you've already been confronted, there might be a situation where you might have to fight back. So it's something to think about ahead of time, so that when you're confronted with it, you at least have these options in your head of how you're going to deal with that when you are confronted with that situation.
See, I think that's really key information, but where do you think the average person falls short in knowing that kind of information? I mean, what opportunities do they have to educate themselves?
So, well, when we have crimes occur like the most recent one, it did get quite a bit of publicity, and so we are able to get that information out to the public that way. We're also trying to find different ways to reach various segments of the community. There was a time when most people got newspapers. That's not so true anymore. And so we're relying on things like Facebook and Twitter to get information out to those segments of the population that rely on those outlets to get their information. And so we're continually looking for different ways to interact and communicate with the public.
So what can someone do to better protect themselves, to protect their belongings, essentially? What can they do?
Well, it really just gets down to really some common sense things. And the first thing I think people in Pullman need to realize is that things can happen here, and things do happen here. Sometimes we get lulled in this false sense of security that, hey, we're in Pullman and nothing's going to happen to me. But we do have crime here, and so really it pays to take some precautions to keep from becoming the victim. And so when you have some valuables in your car, put them under the seat and put them out from view so that they don't become a crime of opportunity for someone who maybe wasn't going to commit a crime, but now they see it's in front of them and just can't resist the temptation. Lock your cars, lock your houses, lock your apartments.
Well, thank you, Chief Jenkins, for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
If you have ever received a speeding ticket or written up as a minor in possession, did you know WSU has free legal advice? Well, we'll have more information when we come back. Welcome back to Studio 41. Each year, WSU students are required to pay mandatory fees for campus services such as Pullman Transit, the Student Recreation Center, and Health and Wellness. But one lesser-known utility funded by ASWSU is Student Legal Services. Studio 41 reporter Kyle Simchuk goes in-depth to tell us more about what Student Legal Services can do for students when they seek legal advice.
If you're having legal trouble, help is just an elevator ride up to the 3rd floor of the Cub. Student Legal Services is a free legal advising service for WSU students. Funded by ASWSU, students have the opportunity to seek legal help regarding a variety of situations. SLS says the majority of cases they hear deal with landlord and tenant agreements.
It's not surprising, I think, to anyone who's ever had to sign a lease or dealt with a lot of the companies in Pullman.
The rest are usually criminal offenses such as MIPs and speeding tickets. Director of SLS Chris Morgan says that there are some cases that SLS is unable to provide legal advice due to conflict of interest.
So if you had a problem with another person on campus or even a roommate or something like that, it's a conflict of interest for us to be dealing with WSU students against WSU students in a civil environment.
There's only one certified attorney on staff at Student Legal Services. Attorney Wynn Mossman deals with cases all over Whitman County and the Palouse. He describes the benefits of utilizing this campus resource as opposed to hired legal advice.
Most of the time, a person is going to pay about $200 or more per hour in order to talk to a lawyer about various legal problems.
Mossman has one particular goal when advising students at Washington State University.
My goal would be that they're not taken advantage of, that they understand what their rights are, whether it's in a landlord-tenant relationship or whether it's in their interaction with law enforcement.
Now, students should know that Student Legal Services will not represent you in court. They are only here to advise you on legal matters. And if you want, you can stop by and pay them a visit. They're here on the 3rd level of the Cub, room 305, and their office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 p.m., and Friday, 9 to 1 p.m. For Studio 41, I'm Kyle Simchuk. Back to you in the studio.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Studio 41. If you have a public issue you would like to see investigated or explained, follow us on Twitter at Studio41_Cable8 or like our Facebook page at Studio 41. Good night and go Cougs.
Good night and good luck.